What is going on, guys? You know what we are talking about today. We have some huge earnings tomorrow before the market opens, and that is Alibaba. Alibaba is going to be announcing their earnings for their Q3, and we are going to be discussing what I am expecting for those earnings here today. So we are going to go over everything that has happened in China over the last couple of years, how that has affected their earnings, what analysts are really expecting for these earnings, and then we're going to close off with my opinion on where I think the stock is going to move tomorrow morning. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. Let's start off by taking a look at Alibaba's chart. Alibaba has had a lot of movement over the last month or so. We can see that here today, the stock basically traded sideways, but we had an extreme amount of volatility. The stock was up at the start of the day and then traded all the way down quite a bit. We can see that this move was actually a 2% downward move. And then the stock from there actually traded up the rest of the day, and all the way by the end of the day from its low moved back up almost 2%. So a lot of volatility going on with the stock right now, and that is to be expected as we head into earnings. Over the last 5 days, we can see that the stock is down over 7%, 7.5% downward move over the last 5 days. Over the last month, it gets even worse. We can see the stock is down almost 21% over the last month. 6 months, we can go out, we can see that the stock is actually in a fairly good spot. We can see, lows, it was around $63, and then from there to where we are at now, we're still up almost 50%. So overall, it's been a good last couple of months. 6 months, we can see it's still positive, but over the last year, we are down 13.62% for Alibaba. So it's been very volatile over the last year. I wanted to look at this article here. So this article is Alibaba may report slowest ever quarterly revenue growth. And this was posted February 21st of 2023. And there are a lot of good points in this article to both sides. When I first read this headline, my initial thought was this is going to be a super negative article, but I want to get to the end of this article and basically explain why everything can be seen as two different sides to the story with Alibaba. The first point up is their actual EPS. So for EPS, they are expected to be anywhere from 16.55 yuan to 16.87 yuan. And what I did is converted this, so yuan to USD, and I converted it around 16.75 yuan. And you can see that that comes out to $2.43 in USD. And on top of that, revenue is expected to grow at its slowest pace ever of 1.8% to 246.9 billion yuan, or $36 billion. And the slowdown in revenue is really caused by two things. The first being the Chinese government has been cracking down on a lot of these large tech companies. This has been happening over the last couple of years. They have implemented a lot of new regulations and laws that really prevent these tech industry companies from doing what they were previously doing. They've also fined a lot of these companies to kind of promote what they claim to be common prosperity. So they are taking money and trying to take power away from these tech companies and really supposedly redistribute it to the people of China. And the second reason for the slowdown is the zero pandemic policy. So China has had a very strict policy on the pandemic where they will shut down cities throughout China if there is a large outbreak of pandemic cases in that area. They'll shut it down completely. People won't be able to go into work. They won't be able to go out and go shopping. They won't be able to basically do anything. And obviously that has a severe restriction on the economy. And this directly affects Alibaba's business, as 2/3 of the company's total sales are from domestic China. There are a couple of positives going into earnings. The first being that there has been some cost control measures implemented by Alibaba, including an almost 33% reduction in operating expenses, and this will help their overall gross margin. The other positive is the potential of AI technology, or Alibaba launching its own AI-specific chatbot technology. And this is something that we've discussed before in the past on the channel. I have kind of two schools of thought with it. Yes, if Alibaba is willing to put the money towards growing this type of industry, then it will certainly have a large impact on the business. I think chatbots throughout Alibaba is overall an important feature, and being able to communicate throughout the world will help them expand their business. But I do also see the benefit of just adopting someone else's technology. Microsoft and Google are looking like they are going to be the top two players players in this industry. So why not just find a way to integrate their technology into your existing platform and still reap the benefits of this type of AI chatbot technology? So I wanted to jump back and touch on these 3 points, because when you first read this article, you look at these 3 points and they sound like large negatives. They sound like things that are going to affect the business for the long run and could potentially have a lot of detrimental effect on Alibaba as a company. But these are things from the past year. And what we need to keep in mind is we need to look for the future. What is going to happen with Alibaba over the next year, over the next 3 years, over the next 5 years? So when we talk about Chinese tech industry and the regulations that have been put in place and the fines that have been implemented against these businesses, we have already seen that the government is talking about pulling back on a lot of these. And this makes a lot of sense when you look at the Chinese economy. Over the last year or so, we saw the Chinese housing market collapse in a major way. We've seen China GDP fall in a very dramatic way as well. Their growth has been significantly lower than we've seen at any time in the last 20, 30 years. So the Chinese government is overall looking at these problems and saying, how do we get back on track? Well, one of the things we can do is we can potentially start deregulating or reducing our watch on a lot of these Chinese tech industry companies, because these could potentially fuel a lot of growth throughout China. The second thing up here is the zero pandemic policy. This has been a very large topic throughout China. We saw a few months back, the Chinese people actually came out and were revolting and protesting these policies. And we have seen the government answer back with basically saying that they are going to remove a lot of these policies. It was rumored as early back as November that the Chinese government was looking at a reopening or a full reopening strategy where they were trying to get more of the elderly population vaccinated. Overall in China, though, vaccines have not been as effective as in the US. So that is something that China has overall struggled with. But what we are getting indications of right now from the Chinese government is that they are going to potentially fully reopen the economy and cut back a lot of these zero pandemic policies. And obviously, if both of those things come about how they are projected right now, the Chinese government steps in and basically stops regulating, stops fining tech industry, and they take away their zero pandemic policy, that will have a big impact on this third item. So 2/3 of the sales come from domestic China. Obviously, with more people out shopping, that is going to be a big thing for Alibaba. The other thing to note here is 2/3, right? So we are talking about 66% of their sales right now come from within China. What that also means is there is a lot of potential to grow outside of China. We have seen Alibaba talk about expansion into Southeast Asia, and that is going to be a big marketplace and a big potential marketplace in the future to really grow their sales numbers outside of China. So what is my prediction for this upcoming earnings? I personally think that Alibaba will actually have a slight beat for their EPS. I think what we've seen and what we have seen over the last 4 quarters is that Alibaba has continued to beat on EPS numbers. We could see 4% a year ago, 8% a few quarters ago, 12.5%, and then 11% just last quarter. So overall, they have beaten on EPS over the last 4 quarters, and I kind of expect that to be more of the same. I think a lot of the times what analysts are doing when they look at China is they don't fully understand the situation, so they always kind of sandbag their numbers a little bit and come in low, and then Alibaba is able to outperform, and that is overall a positive thing to see. And when we see the stock moving down how we have, the 20% down that it's moved over the last month, I think what that does is presents a good opportunity for, Alibaba to come in, beat on hopefully their EPS, beat hopefully on their revenue as well, and then the stock could potentially move up in a significant way just because it's been beaten down so much just in the last month or so. With all of that said, make sure you are not buying a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are looking into the numbers, understand what the business does, what's positive going forward for the business, what is a negative thing going forward for the business. Make sure you understand what you are getting into and what you are buying into, and that the company is right for your time horizon. A company like Alibaba, they have a lot of growth over the long term, but in the short term, you could see a lot of fluctuations. We've seen over the last year that there's been a lot of volatility in the stock. So that is one thing to keep in mind, right? That your time horizon does matter for the type of companies that you're adding into your portfolio. So with all of that said, I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.